So it is BANLIST season for both Duel Links and the TCG. Yeah, just gotta put that in there for those Farther viewers that do somehow watch me. We have just had the skill changes confirmed to us, right? We're not sure if that means we're getting a full-on BANLIST or not. I don't think we'll get any more skill changes. I think that was it. They wouldn't kind of do more on top. They just rather delay that out. I don't see the point of that. We know in the game there is a thing that says the KCGT, the next stage of it, will use the BANLIST that's in effect on July 10th, which could mean A, we have a BANLIST going live then, or it just means that that's the date of the maintenance, of the last maintenance before the event, and so whatever BANLIST is live then, if there is one, it might be the same BANLIST we have right now, that is the list that will be used in the event. So it could mean we're getting a BANLIST, but it could also mean maybe they're holding off for after the KCGT preliminary finals, whatever, and we're waiting until August for a brand new list. As always, we like to talk about the BANLIST and see what could leave, what could go on it. This is going to be the most accurate prediction, wish list kind of thing. I'm going to do both in one, and I'll talk about what are my predictions, what my wish list for it, what I think Konami could do, and what I want them to do. Wow, recording going very well today. But let's start off with the tier list, because this is where, people like to think Konami solely take DLM's word for what should be here. They don't, but they do use DLM and Reddit and YouTube as data, as well as their own, for what could and should is having issues or being not fun in the overall ranked play experience. So let's start with Resonators. So this deck is pretty new, right? It's the newest meta deck, and usually Konami don't hit things super quick, right? They don't go after the newest deck, but this deck is one of the decks that does like to abuse our good friend Hey Trunade. If they are going to hit it, I don't think they will, but if they do, I think they will do Red to 2. Because yes, you could put Wild Wind to 2, right? You could do that. It's a free-to-play card, no one will really care. But hitting it to 2 really does change the consistency of the deck, right? And I don't think that's the issue. The issue is just being able to do it with a Trunade, right? Being able to just blanket OTK through your opponent. And if you put Red to 2, which is mandatory, like you don't play it with 1, if you do, you're really missing out on a turn 2 play. If your 1 turn play does get disrupted and die, then you're missing out on another play next turn, or for the following turns or whatever. So I think Red to 2 is probably the easiest shot they have. It's an older box card, the Shinobu box. We've seen them hit tons of cards in that box already to 2, so why not another one? I think that would be fine for that hit if they did, but I don't think they'll hit it at all. Moving over to Harpies, this is kind of in a similar spot. The lists here are all kind of from Meta Weekly, but in general, the important thing is here, is like the stats page here of what people use in what deck. Harpies have been around for long enough to where they probably are going to see a hit of some kind. In my opinion, you just put Feather Rest to 2. They play at 1, and it's kind of like the Onomat nerf, where they put Sister to 2, but with Onomats, they then started still playing 1 Sister, 1 Trunade, right? So you hit the deck very, very, very slightly, and basically means they just have to cut one of their Trunades, right? And that would be enough for the moment. But if you really wanted to, you put Egotist to 2 or something, right? Because you do run 2. Or you do Swallow's Nest, because this came out in the same box as Purgatrio, so this would make sense to go to 2 as well, but this would hurt more decks than just this would. So I feel like Feather Rest to 2 is pretty fair for this deck overall. Or maybe you wouldn't put the Oracle to 2, right? You just wouldn't do that. Because you can play the deck without it, so yeah. Onomats. This is a fun one, because this one, of course, they did hit, well, this deck in particular is playing 2 Sister, rather than no Trunade. Which, if we look, 44% of decks are playing Trunade at 1. So that is going down. People are deciding not to play it. So, really, does it matter? And I don't think it does. I think Konami will be fine with how Onomats are right now, and they will leave it as is. But if they do, then of course you can expect probably Gargoyle Wind to 2. If not, Dodo Draw. If they want to hit it even harder, then you put Draw to 2. If not, you put the Wind to 2, because the people are playing 1-on-1 in a lot of builds. And like if you look here, 185%. So yeah. If you want to just remove the True Nade entirely, you do that. If you want to go harder, then you probably do this, or you put the head. You put head to 2, so you're forced to play 1 head, 1 sister, but then that's also quite a new card. So, who knows? I really don't think they'll do anything. I don't think Onomats is kind of at a spot where they really, really, really need to hit, right? The skill did do some things. I'm not sure if they need it. Thunder Dragons, though, these guys need to, have a step down again. I'm sorry, I said this like last BANLIST, I think, or the one before. Dragon Dark to 2. I know they kind of flip-flopped, right? With Dragon Dark, I think, or Dragon Dark or Dragon Duo. One of the two, they flip-flopped them. And I think you just put it to 2, right? You put it to 2 so they can't use things like Gold Suck or the Charge. And then the deck still functions perfectly fine, right? But it's just so good at getting like 2 Levianeers and like a Dragon Hawk or like a Dragon Duo. I don't think you do the Decader. I believe he said you hit this to 1. Like Lupine to 1 is such a big hit, not just for this, but for what is the deck? It is Metaphys, which of course isn't a fun deck to play against, right? It's not a fun deck to play on ladder, but it is still a deck that has its fans that can get more support in the future. And so I don't think you hit the dog to 1, you just go right ahead and hit the dark to 2, because it's been there once, I believe, and if it goes there again, then I don't think anyone's going to be surprised at it going there, right? So that's kind of what's down there. Gaia, nope, it's too early. You can't really hit the core of this deck, really. Cyber Dragon. I don't think Konami will touch it. I think they will leave it as is, right? Obviously we've seen people say, let's put Fusion Gate to 3, because it then kind of clashes with Cosmic, or put it to 2, and then it clashes with the other cards and you just don't play it. And then you play like Overload Fusion. But I don't think Konami is overly worried with the deck right now. But the bigger thing, I think, is this deck right now as is, and this is my opinion, this is what I think, they need to do more to it to make it so they can add more support. Because Cyber Dragons have a ton more support, really cool support, in the future, that right now, whilst you're playing a build that plays 4 Cyber Dragon cards, you're not going to touch. Because this version is too good for what it is, right? It did get first, I believe, in the KC Cup, or in the KC Grand Tournament. So, in a perfect world, they would go back and they would nerf the skill for this to require a certain amount of Cyber Dragon cards, and like in the main deck, right? So you could say 7 Cyber Dragon cards to get the effect off. And it would mean that you'd have to play more monsters, right? Because these wouldn't count. Cyberload wouldn't count. This wouldn't count. You'd have to play more Cyber Dragon names. And then you could then potentially bring in one of the Xyzes and the other support and have a good time with that. But as the deck stands right now, the playstyle is so different to how that would be that I don't think you'd even play that version if you had it. Finally, for the main core decks I want to talk about, you saw this coming, you should have done, Dark Magician. It has been a very long time since this boy had been on the list, right? On the ban list. And right now, the main way you play the deck, if you actually have a look at how many decks, cogged or whatever, it's not been many on DLM. It's like 5 decks in May, 2 so far in June. No one is playing this deck at a high level. On ladder, you do still see it come up, right? But it's nowhere near as good as it was. And it feels, it's just me being a big fanboy, right? But it feels really crappy that Blue Eyes kind of got this really soft hit technically. This version of the deck, it succeeds. The Dark Magician stuff is like your second option. Obviously you draw into it with your chair or whatnot, but it's just kind of secondary to the playstyle of the deck. So, in my infinite wisdom, bring back Rod to 2. Make it share the slot with Illusion Magician. Because then you're forced to either decide, do I want to play Star Seraphs with this build, or do I want to play a pure Dark Magician deck? Which some people might want, because having Rod at 1 and this at 3 is, a huge boost to consistency, as it is. And if you put it to 2 and you don't play the Dark Illusion, which you'd be kind of dumb to do because that gives you some disruption in your opponent's turn, then and also the KC Grand Tournament is coming with a promo card, the prize card of winning of a Dark Magician. But the card, absolutely, the deck sucks in Duel Links right now. It's not doing anything. So either they bring in more support, you know, like some of the Dark Magician fusion stuff, the one with Dark Magician Girl, that lets you draw a card and set a trap, right? Or they give us back Rod in some way. Maybe you just hard limit it to 1. But if you put it to 2, you can then clash it with this, and then your draw engine is literally just the same as it was before, but Dark Magical Circle isn't all that great right now. If we look at kind of what decks are around, Harpies, the second you play a circle, you're bouncing back a card. Right? So it's kind of actively against the theme of this deck. Duel, also in Water Shark, is a quick play removal. So they have that. We're so far, you know, beyond how good this was for the time. And I understand why it was hit, why this deck was hitting the way it was. But I feel like it can come back in some way, not back to full power, sure. Like not back to 3 of everything, sure. I'll take that. But just let me play with Rod in some way that doesn't make the rest of the deck feel like it's not worth running. Because right now, if you want to run it, you have to run like 1 and 2, or 2 and 1, or nothing at all. And at the moment, you choose nothing at all, because you have an alternate engine to kind of get you there into that draw. So, I don't know. But in terms of other things off the list that can come off, I think it's about time for Slide Brain of Dakini to be removal limit 2. And I don't know where you put her. Because I can see Konami being like, okay, it's a non-targeting removal, right? Do they hard limit her to 1? And say you can bring her back to 1. You can play her at 1 if you want. And that's how we'll kind of test things here, because that will be a buff. A straight buff for that deck, because then they can play 2 copies of their, where is it? Yeah, Machine Angel. They can play that. Or is it enough to bring her back and just bring her back to Unlimited? Could be. I kind of think that Neos Fusion is going to be hit or buffed in some way, because we're getting Grand Mo and Grand Neos. And I think that Konami will, whether it's by a skill for Jaden in the next month, or whether it's via this card, potentially going to 3, which will be funny as hell, right? Because it still can be abused. But it's a very Konami thing to do, to bring something back when you're giving it more support. So anything else here I think should kind of be removed? Not. I just look at these poor Lunalights. Of course, they're doing well in KC Cup, right? So they could very easily get another hit. People are thinking they're safe, but they're not. In Konami's eyes, they might still be good, like on the ladder to the point where they're going to get hit more. But then again, we might not even get a balance despite the game kind of saying or hinting at that we might do, because again, it could just be them saying, we have a maintenance that day for the new event, right? And whatever balance is in effect then, whether there is one or there isn't one, is the balance we play the event with, and afterwards we're kind of then free to have a balance between then and the World's Finals. That could be a thing. But let me know down below what you think of my expert analysis, 100% accurate. Definitely not going to get absolutely roasted in the comments for talking about Dark Magician for 10 minutes, or saying the Cyber Dragon doesn't need to be hit or won't be hit. But yeah, I think I'm wrong on some of them, right? Like Onomats, I think they could easily just go and do something with, but I don't think they will. But yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you all in the next Duel Links video, whenever the hell that is. I'll see you then. That was a really good intro or outro. God, this video is so scuffed. See you then.